Alrighty guys, welcome back to another LEGO set review from BrickByBrick, and today we have set number 75120, and it is called K-2SO, and it is part of the buildable action figure line from LEGO Star Wars, and this was released in 2000 and, it was 2016, not early 2017, because it was on the first wave of Rogue One buildable figures. Along with, I think, Baze, Malbus, and was it Chirrut that was the other one in the, I don't know, something like that. There were 3 of them released in the first wave of buildable figures, and this guy was one of them. That's what I can tell you. Oh, I think the Death Trooper was the other one. It was K-2SO, either Baze or Chirrut, and the Death Trooper. But he is a pretty sizable buildable figure. He is one of the regular $24.99 retail price ones. But he does have quite a few more pieces because there are a lot of smaller parts, and he doesn't use like a whole base chest piece for the most part. He's built relatively differently, at least from the other buildable figure experience I have, which isn't a ton, but you know, this guy is a lot different than the Death Trooper, which I've already reviewed, which is you know, a very very basic feeling one. This guy is also a bit taller, which makes sense because in the movies he does have a bit of height on everyone else, and he actually seems like he might be a little bit short for appropriate buildable figure scale. The legs are relatively basic. These pieces, it uses a different piece in the front to cover it up. It uses one of these big, long, toothy pieces attached to some Technic parts, so it's a little bit more robotic and angular looking, a little bit more skeletal seeming too, but it's not a super complicated build. It's relatively simple, and it does use the same kind of feet pieces. I don't remember paying attention to K-2SO's feet at all in the movie, so I can't say if there's anything else they should have done. I'm assuming that this is, you know, pretty much the best they could get. Without, you know, building something crazy, you know, I think it's okay to use these feet. These friction adder pieces are in dark gray instead of black, which it would have been nice maybe to get it in black because it would all blend in. However, he's a robot, so, you know, various mechanical details should be expected. And I guess I should say droid, not robot. But, you know, the sides of the feet aren't super you know, covered up, but it does have these nice large panel pieces, which are relatively typical on, you know, buildable figures. The torso part of the figure does use a little bit of sticker detailing, just right up there in that center, and on the right side. I guess his left side, but, you know, you're seeing it on the right. And it does have one of these pieces, which I believe is a Hero Factory piece. And it does look sufficiently robotic. I think this whole section looks pretty good. The back does have this one gray slider piece, which is a little bit out of place. However, that's part of a little action figure. If you move that from side to side, it'll make his arms swing around, which, you know, is okay. It kind of just goes like that. And you can move the arms separately and then have it in different poses moving back and forth. So, you know, something like that. Or you could even go with something like that. And he'd be clapping, kind of. It's a little bit harder to use than I think it could be, and it doesn't add that much, but it is kind of cool. I don't know if K-2SO is the most appropriate character to use it on, because I don't know what he would be doing like that, but, you know, whatever. And up here on the arms, he does have printed piece with the Imperial insignia on either side. His arms are very skeletal, which I think looks very appropriate and works well. He does use the same hand as everyone else. Up here, there is a fencing sword, whatever it's called, and a lever, which make 2 different sized antennae on his back, which I think looks good. And he uses another larger piece, which I believe they actually use for the necks of some characters, because it's got a ball joint in the back. But I'm not 100% familiar with where, so I can't give you any examples. And then this is my single favorite part of the set. This head mold is fantastic. It looks really spot on, and even has some very small patches of gray printing to represent weathering, which looks really awesome. And it's on both sides. There's a little bit of red in there too, for some other important details. And just all the way around, this thing looks fantastic. And I think is probably the reason that this is one of the best buildable figures to date. Just because a lot of buildable figures don't get such a good job with their heads. That's why a lot of the human characters look not so great. Typically helmets are pretty good, but this head I think is fantastic. So overall, I'd say that if you're into the buildable figures, you should buy this. It's one of the best ones, and I guess maybe if you're not into Rogue One, you don't need it, but I still think that it would look great with any amount of the buildable figures, and is a must-have as far as they go. So if you're into collecting them, I would recommend this one. Even if you're not, I would recommend it. This one, I think, is the best introduction into the buildable figure range. Maybe the only other one being the Scout Trooper and Speeder Bike. That one would also be, kind of a good one to start with, just because it is kind of different. But this one here, as far as just a single figure goes, it is the least like them. It's not very, it doesn't use any preformed big pieces, or not many. And I think that for the most part, this one has a very interesting building experience that feels more like building a Technic set than building, a Bionicle or other Star Wars buildable figure. This one definitely, I think, I enjoyed the build more than the Death Trooper, but you get a lot of small parts and you end up putting them together to make this thing. And obviously, there are sections that are more detailed than others, but for the most part, I think that this looks, really quite accurate and is a good representation of the character. So it basically accomplishes everything that the buildable figures range is trying to do, and it is useful in play as well. However, I feel like with these buildable action figures, they work better as display pieces than as play pieces, just because, if you're a kid, you're gonna try and get him to, and then you're gonna put him down and he's just gonna fall over, because you put him in all these weird poses. Some kids won't mind that, and I know I personally am probably just, pointing it out because it's something to point out. I'm not a big fan of this, as far as Lego goes, with things that can't just be, put down. That kind of seems a little bit fragile, but it's not going to fall apart. So, it can be used in play. However, I feel like it works better, at least for me, as a display piece. So that's part of the reason why I think that this is one of the better ones, because it does work as a display model. So I know this has been a relatively lengthy review for something kind of simple, where, what you see is what you get mostly. But I hope you guys enjoyed it regardless, and I will see you guys all next time. Bye, everyone.